What's up, y'all? It's your girl Ebony coming to talk to y'all about the last company that I worked for as I prepare to start back with one of the major companies in March. So, I just want to say that this particular company, I'm not going to say their name because they're not that important. Okay. But their concept is necessary. So, their concept was staff assistant home dialysis. So it's not, which that was confusing, hemodialysis versus staff assistant home dialysis. But basically, what it means was they would send nurses to the patient's home. If they send a nurse to the patient's home, that is not necessarily state regulated or, like Medicare, Medicaid is not going to pay for that. So this particular company had primary insurance. Like the patients had to have primary insurance through a commercial insurance or literally pay out of pocket. And that's where I saw like the bill for, some patients could be um, at minimum $13,000 per treatment. And that's in their home. So that just made me think of so many things as it pertains to like working the floor with, let me make sure my mic, okay. As pertains to working the floor with the major corporations, okay? Because I've only worked with two major corporations and then I work with the smaller company. So I'll just say that that concept is necessary because what I saw in the major companies for home hemodialysis was the patients, whether younger or older, were afraid to do their treatment by themselves at home. So some people they live by themselves. It could be an older widow or it could be a younger male that wanted to date. um, I was told that they wanted to date, but they said their girlfriend was scared to do the treatment. Honestly, in dating, I don't want to be doing your dialysis treatment. Now, I ain't gonna date nobody that's sick anyway. But anyway, my point is nothing against those that have to do their thing, gotta do their thing, or just have a love, because I did um witness and spoke with some nurses or even techs that fell in love with the patient. And anyways, that's another story for another day. The point I'm making is this concept is necessary. This is a concept that I actually considered years ago when I was talking to a younger male patient, or when I've talked to the older patient who literally tried home hemodialysis at home for like maybe a week, and they immediately went back to the clinic because they were afraid to stick themselves. They were afraid of the machine. It's just fear, 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 especially if something happened and something goes wrong. So that means for me, everybody is not and should not be a candidate for dialysis at home, especially if they don't have someone there, family or friend or caregiver or whatnot, to help care for them, to where they're comfortable to do that at home. Now, some people are very well self sufficient and can really do it, and some can't. Okay. So, anyways, the concept is necessary. I still agree with the concept. But for this particular company that I work for as an office manager, the execution was faulty. Okay. Um, I will say again, they were not fully state regulated. Now, when I say that, like that's me comparing the difference between in center with the major corporation and not in center. Okay. So in center, I experienced policies and procedures already completed that you can look up on, Fresenius, US Renal, Davita's on their website. You can look that up. It can be printed out. It's already done. You don't have to come up with one. Um, with this company, I witnessed, and even myself, with certain things, had to come up with policies and procedures. Like, okay, if this happens, what do I do with this? I witnessed the directive nursing. So when I say DON, I mean directive nursing. I witness them trying to come up or just coming up with some based off of their own experience, um, because those were not in place, and that was a problem. So that's a part of organization, and that's just a part of the company being organized. If Fresenius, if US Renal of DaVita, if and then other companies, Concerto, other companies, and I'm just naming companies that I know of in Georgia. If you know other companies, put them down below. But these are just companies that already have policies and procedures readily available for their employees. Um, yeah. So, and also, because they're getting private commercial or commercial paying patients only, then that means like state is not like checking for them like that unless a patient calls or somebody else calls or whatever. Like they're not checking for them like that. Supposedly they're supposed to come every so many years and check on it because the clinic was quote unquote clinic was interim, so like temporary. So basically if they're setting up patients homes, setting up the equipment in a patient's home, then the patient could come in if they didn't have anywhere else to get their dialysis treatment. The patient could come in the interim to get their treatment while their home was getting set up. So literally they were putting full hemodialysis machines, like the ones that's about big as us, the big ones. I call them the dinosaurs because it was the older machines. It wasn't the newer. It wasn't a buy bag machine, which that would have been great, but whatever. It wasn't a next stage machine. It wasn't a what was that other one? Start with a T. They said they use them in the hospitals. Anyways, it wasn't. It was the big ones, okay. And they also had like portable ROs. So it wasn't the really big RO in the patient's home, like all these different stuff, which sounded cool and all that, but could be a lot more difficult and intricate and just had a lot more going on. Okay. So anyways, I'm looking at my notes so I don't get off the track. So I will say in my time there, we never treated anyone. Basically the new DON was doing damage control, calling her people's in because if I go back a little bit, when I first started, I want to say like the first week or two, somebody got fired. But then within a month, like the DON there, who was only there for 3 months, and the biomed, they both quit. So basically I started part-time knowing it would be part-time, but it was a discussion about me going full-time. And that's when I went full-time because there was nobody there in the office. Okay. So that's when I went full-time. After that, got a new DON. I'll tell y'all how that happened. Yeah, got a new DON because of me. All right, I'm gonna give myself the credit for that. And yeah, so I'm gonna get there. So here's what I want to put in someone's mind as you are looking to leave the clinic you're at for whatever reason, whether it be, like your preceptor, because I've seen that in the comments, or you're having difficulty. So let me just reframe those words, change those words around. If you're having difficulty learning from your preceptor, if you're having bullying at your clinics can be drama all day. Like there were times I was like, is this high school? Like, what are we doing? And I don't do all that. And I'm younger. I'm in my 30s and I don't do what y'all doing, and y'all old enough to be my mama. Is wild. Anyways, but if you're having issues, or if you just want to move to a clinic that's closer to your home, so you're not driving, your commute isn't as long, but you're just looking to go either to a new clinic or a new company. Most time people going to a different company because they tired of the company they're at, and or they just want more money. Okay. We want more money for the work that we do. So I'm going to just name some things to consider before going to a dialysis company that is new and or accepts private pay. So you will need to ask those questions if a company reaches out to you, because I was reached out to. So if a company is reaching out to you, then you need to be asking questions, like, especially if it's a home dialysis program type of company. Okay. So things to consider are they are working out the kinks that larger companies and hospitals have already worked out. Um, but they're just refining. So that's why, DaVita's always changing something because they're refining certain kinks. Fresenius might constantly change things. US Renal, things are adjusting in healthcare all the time because they're refining the kinks based off of what was found, um, off of trials and dang, what is it called? It starts with a P, but I'm gonna call it trials. Off of different trials, pilots. That's what it's called. Off of different pilots that were implemented in certain parts and certain clinics. Um, they're sorting out, they're refining those kinks versus this company in particular was they just didn't have the kinks worked out. They didn't have enough staff to even have the kinks worked out, and the staff that was there most of the time was new because people were either quitting or they were firing them for unnecessary causes, or just they just didn't feel like they wanted them anymore. They, maybe that person was late all the time, maybe that person had certain requirements and conditions that they did not like or that were unrealistic or that just did not work with the employers. Okay. So I'll just say that. So that's a part of kinks, as well as one of the kinks could be a small number of patients. So for instance, this particular company only had 3 or 4 patients. Now they did operate in other areas, as far as giving dialysis to patients in jail, inmates in jail or whatnot, or people in jail. I don't really like to say inmates because I have family in jails or in prison, so it's like, but anyways, they only had 3 or 4 like actual home patients. So um you there was possible that you wouldn't get enough hours, and that was experienced with the nurses. I never got to go to the patient's home because I was the office manager for the office as well as the PCT, so that way if we did have new patients and they needed to come in center, then we would treat them there or whatnot. So but there were nurses that quit because they didn't get enough hours. Now for me, like I said, I started part-time. I went full-time for like a month after those others quit, and I was the only one there. So it's a lot I can say about that, but I'm gonna leave it there. So yeah, it just wasn't getting enough hours, because then when we got a new deal in after a few weeks of her coming back, then they wanted me to go back down to less hours, and I was like, that's crazy. But I stayed. So I'm gonna say I can't fully blame them for certain things. It makes me think of like what you'll put up with. It makes me think of like exchanges, with it makes me think of like different exchanges, like you gotta think of what exchange is happening when you're working for any type of company, whether it be big or small. What are you willing to exchange? Because in the agreement, like if it works for you but it doesn't work for me, that shouldn't work out, and in a way that's abuse. Or if it works for me but it doesn't work for you as an employer, then that's like abuse too. So anyways, there's that. But the other thing, the other kink, I would say from my observation of working there, is that they are not connected and have not tapped into the community. The community being where they were located was like very inconvenient. Yeah, where they were located was very inconvenient for employees as well as getting potential patients. But they just weren't tapped into the community. Also, the employees, like most major corporations, the employees did not live in Georgia. So yeah, but to me, that's no excuse for not being tapped in, because they had been in business in Georgia specifically for a few years. So I don't know. I mean, I gave ideas. I feel like they should have just came to Georgia for like 30, for at least at minimum a month or 2 months or whatever, to really get their roots in the ground for themselves. Um, for themselves. Okay, I'll get to that. But anyways, nobody really knew them, meaning that they expected us staff to basically get them out there, and find patients. Because they did have a nice little incentive, you know what I'm saying? Nice little incentive they had for, if you got patients to come aboard. So of course I try to get patients to come aboard, but you know, I just don't feel like the patients were comfortable with the agreement. And also I also feel like I feel like the patients weren't comfortable that much with certain conversations that may have been had outside of me. And that's not to say that I could have talked them into it fully. I just feel like there's a way that corporate might talk to a patient versus how um a tech or a nurse or a social worker or dietitian. Like there's just a certain heart you need to talk to a patient to break down information, to not overwhelm them with information, but to be able to like break it down to where they can understand it and feel comfortable with moving forward. Because moving dialysis equipment into your home is a big deal. This is not small equipment. This is a lot of equipment. So yeah, that was a major thing, like just not being tapped into the community. Basically a lot of Georgia does not know about them. But what I did was I had researched. This was I was when I was hyped about the company when I first started or whatever. I had researched something because I was like, okay, how we needed the word out about. At that time, it was us. It wasn't us by the end. But get the word out about, this company or whatnot. Like, how can we reach the community? How can we get face to face? Because I am a people person in that way. How can we get face to face with the community? You know what I'm saying? So then I just looked up certain events. And at that time, the National Kidney Foundation, NKF, were having a kidney walk. So it just so happened that they were having a kidney walk that weekend. So I was in communication with their director and my employer, and we were able to be sponsors at the kidney walk. So that was exciting. It was a lot exhausting because at the time that previous DON that was there, she wasn't as outgoing as me and as like, come on, like talking to everybody. So I'm like, I'm one person. I can't talk to all thousand. It's 1,000 people out here. I can't talk to all of them. Um, so that was like a little annoying because I'll be like, hey, go talk to that nephrologist over there, DON director. Come on. And she just wasn't, that just wasn't her personality. So I had to respect that, but it was still annoying and exhausting because it's like, okay, you can help us continue to get paid. You know what I'm saying? So, anyways, the good out of that was I talked to a lot of people and ended up connecting with some of the nurses and whatnot. And then, so fast forward a little bit, one of those nurses became the last DON that I worked with before I left. So that was like just exhilarating. That was exciting to me, for me, because to me it just showed me what I could do for myself. But at the same time, I was excited for the company because I'm like, oh, this sounds like a really good person. I met with her a couple times. I talked to her a few times. Our personality matched, as in like, giving the same energy. So if it was like, if we ever did get to that point where we were going out to, in the community, going to see doctors or going to see these people or going to see that person, going to see patients, going to see this or that, like our energy matched to where we could get business. It's iffy to say or just act like dialysis isn't business, and I know a lot of us don't want it to be just business, but it is business. But I think there's a way that business has to be done. It's business, but but the point of the business is to help the patient, to help the client. Is not fully to make $1 million, even though being very transparent and being honest, dialysis does make a lot of money working in dialysis. You can within the years, or just depending on how you maneuver and go about it in your career or whatnot. So my point in saying all that is, I was able to get her on the team. Um, yeah, and that came from being in the community, so that was exciting. Anyways, I said that. Now I will say this, um, that this is the part where I said, like, to me, the employers expected the employees to bring in the business. When I worked for Fresenius, I didn't have to bring in no business. I just came to work and did my job. That was my business. It wasn't bringing in patients. Okay. So to me, that shouldn't have been my job. Like, it's your job to bring in the patients. It's my job to take care of them in whichever way I need to. But I just feel like, as an employer, it's your job to bring them in. Because if not, then that's extra, honestly, unnecessary work. Like, you need to be talking to the doctors. You need to be talking to the nurse practitioners. You need to be getting relationships with them. I just need to be taking care of the patient. So I just feel like they didn't know what to do with that connection. And the ball was in my court, and I didn't really want to do it. Like, I got to that point where I didn't want to do it. It's like I was excited about it, but doing it by myself, for someone else, would be one thing, I guess. Honestly, if you're doing it by yourself for your own values versus doing it for y'all values, and I don't really fully, honestly, don't agree with y'all values. So why would I go that extra mile? Why would I put in that extra energy? I didn't. I wouldn't. And especially after the kidney walk, honestly, I felt unappreciated, and that was confirmed later. I felt unappreciated for some reason. I guess I wanted to be validated. Found that out in counseling. Found that out with my therapist. Uh, and then I was like, why do I want to be validated by these people? Like, that's stupid. And so now I don't care. You don't have to validate me. I know my worth and my work ethic as it pertains to um, certain things, honestly. But as it pertains to that and that company and employer, like, that was a wrap. So, anyways, there's that. Yeah, and within that time span, like, that particular DON quit before the one that I found at the kidney walk um quit. I mean, the one that I found at the kidney walk, she didn't quit until I left. But yeah, the other one, she just quit, like, literally one day. It was a situation, and she was like, all right, bye. And then, like, literally the next week, the biomed, which they only had one, they need like two or three, honestly, but that's neither here nor there. Um, he just walked in my office and just handed me his timesheet. That was a thing. All right. Timesheet and keys and to the company truck. And I said, oh, shoot. So it was just a lot of things happening that I think that if the employers were actually cared and more involved in the process in Georgia, because they have clinics and stuff going on in another place. But if they were more hands on and more involved in Georgia, then things would be better. And if their mannerism and how they treat people overall was better and stayed professional, then things would have the company wouldn't be a revolving door. But anyways, I don't care now. It don't matter. So I would say overall, they lacked major organization. Um, like they didn't have any organization. I tried to put a little bit in there, put my little spin on things. I tried, but they lacked major organization. So for example, when I came as an office manager, I was to order the supplies. So order supplies for the gels by calling Fresenius. Y'all know most clinics use Fresenius supplies. So ordering supplies for the gels, ordering needle packs, ordering, tape, bandage, like ordering certain things for the gels mainly, and even in the office. So that mean I had to be in contact with the nurses in the field. So that was being done via text message, and I did not want that. Don't text my phone about what you need. I was like, to me, that was not professional. That was not organized to me. And I thought about, because I was like, it didn't take long till I was like, oh no, I can't stay here long. But it just got to the point where I was like, okay, if I'm not here and I leave, then what can be the paper trail so that whoever comes after me, they can see what was being done, what was being ordered, how much or how less or whatever. So that is what I tried to implement. It was not easy, even though it was literally like less staff than the fingers on my hand, but it was not easy. Even up to me leaving. I roll. Okay. Anyways, my point in saying that is it was just very unorganized, especially with having so many hands in the pots, especially with having so many people either quit or, get fired, um, whether it was their fault for getting fired or not their fault for getting fired. I'll leave that there. Um, yeah. So being that they didn't live here, they would visit once a month for the most part. But honestly, I didn't see that much change. But I learned a lot as in as an employer. When I think of myself, in the future of being an employer, as an employer, you have to take accountability and responsibility for your own fault and why your company is doing poorly. Okay. If you can't do that, then your employees will not have respect for you. Or whatever little respect they did have is gone. Because if you ask them a question, this happened to me. I was asked, did such and such teach you how to do this? I said, no. Well, they should have taught you. They didn't teach me. They call such and such on speakerphone. Did you teach Ebony how to do such and such? No. They just hang up the phone, didn't apologize to me, acted like I don't never do nothing right. I can go on, but just know I was heated in that moment. So much to the point where my chest, in the meeting, I'm pretty sure I felt like my whole body was expressing. I was really trying not to blow up. I'm trying to tell you because I was like, I serve the Lord. But the words that I want to tell y'all right now, the attitude I want to give, I'm like, is this righteous indignation or no, Lord? Because they about to get it. So they didn't get it they still got it a little bit because literally they asked me a question about, how I felt. Honestly, I don't remember everything they were saying because they were telling me a bunch of what I didn't do and wrong and all this other stuff. So I kind of zoned out at some point because I'm like, I know you lying. And that's not to say that I don't. No one likes being told what they're doing wrong, but that's not to say that I was not open to hearing critique. I'm open to it, but if you're constantly jab, 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 then after that first jab, I'm deuces up. Like I'm mentally like, who they talking to? Like, what's going on? Like, I'm trying to figure out how I'm finna respond and not react. Okay. So they asked me a question about how I felt about everything they said, and I told them that they had unrealistic expectations, and boy, did they! And I just said it just as calm. Was I upset? Absolutely in that moment, but I didn't yell it or anything. I just was like, I feel like y'all have unrealistic expectations, and then they just went on, well, how do we? Da, 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 da. Like, and then it was a whole ordeal with that, and I just sat there quiet, ready to quit, but I didn't quit. I should have quit then, but here goes back to the exchange. So for me, what I was getting out of it was not getting up at 2 or 3 in the morning. um, but on the negative side, not getting enough hours to work. Like, because after the new DON started, then they brought my hours back down. Remind you, I'm like, wait, what? But they were paying me more than the other companies. So that goes to show, just because you get paid more base pay, I can never work overtime there either. Just because you get paid more base pay, or offered more base pay, doesn't mean that that's going to be the best job for you or the best place for you. I'll share that in my therapy session. um, my counselor was asking me when I was telling her the situation, and she was just like, "Well, are you the only person they were asking this?" I'm like, "Yeah," and she's like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Hmm." And then I'm like, "Well, this person quit, and this person quit, and this person got fired," and she's like, "Why?" She was like, "See, you got to think of things like that." So I took that into. I'm gonna move forward a little bit. I took that into my interviews that I have had in the past 3 months, and I would ask the question. I know that my last one that I actually wanted, I was like, kind of wanted that place. But I asked the question, what would you say are your challenges in keeping your workers? So that's a good question to ask. And honestly, that's where, as a believer of Jesus Christ, I'm like, Lord, may I hear, may I have the, ears of discerning ears, to truly be able to hear the truth out of a lie. So if the manager is giving me some crappy answer that's not the truth, and they're not taking their own, to me, you got to take some type of responsibility and accountability for why you can't keep staff. It's one thing if you can keep staff, but you just need like one or two. It's another thing if you can't keep no staff. And that's what was happening with this smaller company. They couldn't keep staff. That's a problem on so many levels. So, anyways, because I ain't gonna talk about them too much now. Uh, only God gets the glory. So just to sum it up, I just want to say, if you are going to quit a major company, and I'm sorry, I got worked up, so I feel like I'm out of breath. I feel like I'm out of breath now. But if you're gonna quit a major company like Fresenius, US Reno, DaVita, I don't really know all the other ones right now, but those are the three I can think of off the top of my head. If you're gonna quit them, do it for somewhere better, not somewhere where you got to bring in the patients. Like I said, unless they're paying you enough. I wasn't getting paid enough for that. Unless they're paying you enough, unless they, like, because to me, some of the stuff was asked of me is operational. Like, I'm not the director of operations. I'm an office manager, but you want me to bring in patients, and like, no, you should bring them in. I'm supposed to be doing their paperwork and making sure that get complete, not bringing them in. That's just my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. If you are a AA, so I liked it. I preferred the title office manager over the title administrative assistant. Okay, so just know it's the same thing. Or even what's the title? Unit clerk. To me, office managers just had a better ring to me. And also, these employers are married. So one of them would say administrative assistant. The other one said office manager, and I liked it. So I was like, oh yeah, what they said. I'm keeping that. Not gonna call myself anything else. So, anyways, that's just to say, go back to my point of leave for somewhere better. If you gotta run, still do it for somewhere better. Don't get into a worse situation. And try your best to, when you do leave, or whether it's by choice, or is whether you're getting pushed out, or whether it's you are by choice or getting pushed out, try not to leave offended, because there were things that they said to me that was offensive. Okay, there were ways that they had that was offensive to me. So I had to come to terms to that with that and realize that I was offended and forgive them. Now that don't mean you have to call them and be like, I forgive you. No, I ain't do that. I on my kneecaps to the Lord. You know what? I release this offense, because the thing is, when people offend you, most of the time they don't even know, especially if they are not sensitive enough. And I'm not saying sensitive to where, they always in their feelings, but I mean sensitive enough where they acknowledge and recognize when I have said something wrong to someone or did something wrong to someone, and will fess up and be like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, and try not to do it again. Because some stuff is done habitually, because it's just a habit, a bad, nasty character habit that people have that have not been told that they have it or corrected about it. So you do your best to not be offended by what a boss, manager, nurse manager, charge nurse, or peer or whatever. You do your best to not be offended by what someone says to you or does to you, and um you know work through that. And so my best way, that my example is, I forgave them, I forgive them, I forgave them. I released them by name to the Lord. I prayed like David as well, though, because David, in Psalms, was praying some stuff like, Lord, it, if they cause harm to me, he like, that if they created a noose, may they be hung by the very noose that they created. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. So I mean, I'm gonna stay right. I'm gonna leave that alone. My point in that is, don't be offended, and if you're a believer, then ask God to touch that place in your heart, because you can carry that offense elsewhere and expect that, from other people of authority, because your employees are people of authority and managers are people of authority. Like, you can carry that with your relationship with them, and that will cause you to see them from a distorted, perverted, not sexually, but corrupted lens. I'm saying a lot. It's a lot in there. But I say that to say, again, it's your business. If you are a tech, mainly talking to my techs because I'm a tech, okay? If you're a tech, patient care technician, dialysis technician, it's your business to take care of those patients, okay? And that's whether you like the people or not. But that's a whole nother video. So yeah, I learned a lot. I will say, leaving out, the biggest thing that I learned was, like, to deal with any insecurities that I was having that caused me to want validation from them. Whether it be because they look like me, or not. So my mentor, she had sent me this video, and it was a woman of God talking about validation, and she was like, validation is for your driver's license. I said, I like that. That means that you shouldn't be looking for nobody. Nobody should validate you but the Lord. You know what validates you? The Bible. The Bible. The Lord validates you. So I just say that. I just say that. So I hope this video was helpful for those that are preparing to, preparing their exit, as I call it, into either another clinic or even into another field. I mean, everyone doesn't stay in dialysis. And in my job search, it was hard. I've been looking for something else for the last 6 months outside of dialysis that paid me at least close to what I was getting in the medical field. And I was like, is it me? Like, I've been in the dialysis field for 6 years with y'all offering like $19. I twitch, okay? No, no. That's what most companies are starting off new techs with. I started in dialysis making $14 and some change in 2018. I refuse to go back to that or accept that. What we get paid sometimes is what we accept out of desperation or just trying to get a foot in the door, which to me, that's still desperation in a way. And I completely understand because I've been there, done that. Okay. So, anyways, before I turn this video into a whole nother video, I just want to say, make sure you, really really plan your exit wisely. If you are going from company to company, why do I want to go with this company over that company? um Especially if it's a smaller company. And also just know that all dialysis is the same, in a sense of you're gonna think that you like this part about this company better or this part about that company, but they're all the same. They're all trying to out compete with one another. They're all trying to do this better than the other. Fresenius is the top. Okay, no matter what people say, there's a top. If they wasn't the top, then nobody would be using their products. 100% of dialysis clinics have Fresenius machines, have Fresenius saline, have Fresenius lines. They are the retailers for the dialysis world. They're not the only ones, but I say that to say they're the top resellers. So that can be another video as well. I'm going to end this now because I could just keep talking because now I'm on it. But just be blessed, and I hope that you end up being at a good clinic. Not saying you're gonna like everything at a place. You're not. We grown. We don't like being told what to do all the time. Most of the time, anyway. So I hope you end up at a good spot. I hope you end up with great coworkers. I hope you end up with a good manager. I hope you end up with a good regional director of operations, whatever you want to call them. I hope you end up with some decent patients. You know what I mean? Like, when I say decent, I mean appropriately behaved, because nobody got time to be getting hit. I've seen it. Nobody got time to be getting spit on, heard. Nobody got time to be getting beat up. You know what I mean? So, anyways, I hope that this video has helped you. Let me know down below what part stuck out the most to you, or have you experienced something like this? Have you went from one dialysis company to another one and ended up quitting or getting fired unnecessarily? Have you dealt with some of the things that I mentioned? Y'all know who I'm talking about. Bye.